Sandhan. All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Good morning, my dear students. In this lecture, we are going to talk about a song from one of the famous comedies of William Shakespeare. Who has not heard of William Shakespeare, the Bard of Avon? What is Avon and what is Bard? Remember, the word Bard means poet. And what is Avon? Avon is the river on which Stratford stands. Stratford upon Avon is where Shakespeare was born. Even today, Stratford upon Avon is one of the famous tourist spots of people who go to England. So today we are going to talk about Blow, Blow Thou Winter Wind. This is a song from one of Shakespeare's plays, the play As You Like It. All of you know that Shakespeare wrote 36 plays, different kinds of plays. He wrote comedies, he wrote tragedies, and he wrote historical plays. All of you who love watching Hindi movies know that we remember many of our movies because of these songs. Songs are such an intrinsic part of Indian movies. So also were songs an intrinsic part of the Elizabethan stage, particularly the plays of Shakespeare. But I want you to remember that these plays were written long, long ago, when there were no song recordings, when there were no studios, and therefore the actors or the actresses themselves sang the song. When we think of Shakespeare, we generally think of him only as a dramatist, but we also need to think of him as a poet. Some of you might remember some of the longer poems that he wrote, like Venus and Adonis or The Rape of Lucrece. Some of you might even remember the 154 sonnets that he wrote, addressed either to Lord Pembroke or the Dark Lady. The 154 sonnets which show his greatness as a poet. Of course, we do remember him for his plays, and today I'm going to talk about one of the songs in his plays. The comedies that he wrote, some of the names you might remember: A Midsummer Night's Dream, All's Well That Ends Well, As You Like It, etc. Well, today, the song that I'm going to talk about is from As You Like It. But before we go to the song proper, let's look at the poetry of Shakespeare. What are the characteristics that we see in Shakespeare's poetry? Number one, there is a great lyrical quality. There is music. Remember, my dear students, that these songs were not recited, they were sung. Maybe there was no music, certainly there was no orchestra, there could have been some simple music, but there had to be a lyrical quality to the words itself, the lyrics. It is believed that Shakespeare chose most of his songs from the popular songs of the day. There were already these songs which he chose and probably adapted a little bit to suit the situation, to suit the character, to suit the voice of the singer, the person, the character. So it may not be original. In the songs of Shakespeare that we see in his various plays, we notice a great range. There could be nonsense songs like Ophelia's Willow Song, nonsense verses. There could be graceful perfection under the greenwood tree. There could be homely rusticity. There could be humor, a kind of wry humor. Not the kind of humor that makes you want to laugh, but the kind of humor that probably curls your lip, a wry humor. There are also dirges. Dirges are songs of sorrow, death songs. So when we talk about the poetry of Shakespeare here, I'm talking of the kind of poetry that comes across in the songs of Shakespeare's, the ones that he has in his plays. What is the poem that I'm going to talk about today? The song that I'm going to talk about today? Blow, blow thou winter wind. Most of us, my dear students who live in Gujarat, have not seen a scene like that. But many of our movies or our serials, or those of you who have been to colder climes, might have seen days like this. And remember, this year the winter has been really harsh and severe in many parts of the world and in some parts of our country too. So when you think of a scene like this, and the poet looks at this and he says, blow, blow thou winter wind. Blow, blow thou winter wind. One must remember Shakespeare's great use of the language, the figures of speech that comes across, and therefore he talks of the winter wind. Do you remember alliteration, my dear students? The repetition of the same sound? Winter. Blow, blow thou winter wind. Where is this from? It is from this play, As You Like It. Many of you have probably seen the book, probably heard about the play. It's one of Shakespeare's easier plays because the plot is simple. There's only one theme, the theme of love. And you have 5 or 6 couples in love with each other. And the play ends with all of them getting married and living happily ever after, the fairy tale ending. But before we come to the ending, we have to see how the play begins, my dear students, in order to understand the context of this poem, the context of this song. There are 2 brothers, the Duke Senior and the Duke Junior. Duke Junior wants the throne. So what does he do? He plays foul and banishes his brother to the forest. So the elder brother, with some of his courtiers, reaches the forest. The elder brother, the elder duke, not the villain, but the hero, the main character, has a daughter, Rosalind, who naturally would like to go with her father to the forest. But the younger duke, that is the villain, as I would like to call him, has a daughter called Celia. And Celia and Rosalind, remember they are cousins, they are first cousins, their fathers are brothers, like each other very much. And the Duke Junior knows that Celia will be very sad if Rosalind goes away. And therefore, Rosalind stays back in the court with her uncle and her cousin, the junior Duke and his daughter Celia. The story is not very important for us. But I talk to you about the banished king. And in the company, they reach a forest of Arden. People have guessed as to whether it's a place in Europe, a place in Italy, a place in England. It doesn't matter, it's the forest. And they are there and they seem to be enjoying themselves. They don't miss court life at all because they've got their friends and they have their activities, they've got games, they've got songs. As You Like It is known as a musical comedy because of the number of songs in the play. There are more songs in it than in any other play of Shakespeare. These songs and music are incorporated in the course of action that takes place in the forest of Arden. Remember, I just mentioned Arden. And who sings this song? Lord Amiens, who is a musician. Where? In the forest. Where? In front of whom? In front of the senior duke. I've already told you that these people were not unhappy. They were enjoying themselves because they had all the activities and they did not have the tensions of court life. And the Duke Senior was also quite happy being here. Let me tell you something more about the play, my dear students. William Shakespeare's play, As You Like It, clearly falls into the pastoral romance genre. Pastoral, my dear students, you know the word pastoral, where the whole setting is in the countryside. It's not in urban cities, but in the countryside. And it's a romance. Shakespeare wrote tragedies and comedies. And in the comedies, we talk about plays like As You Like It as a romance. William Shakespeare's play, As You Like It, clearly falls into the pastoral romance genre, literary form. If you can pronounce the genre, very good. You can also use the word literary form. But Shakespeare does not merely use the genre, he develops it. That was Shakespeare's greatness. His use of the language, his use of the form, his use of the stage, his use of stories that already existed. Everything points out to the greatness of Shakespeare as a writer. Shakespeare also used the pastoral genre in As You Like It to cast a critical eye on social practices that produce injustice and unhappiness, to make fun of antisocial, foolish, and self-destructive behavior, most obviously through the theme of love. I already mentioned to you there are about 5 or 6 couples, all of them madly in love with each other. There's a lot of taking on roles. Rosalind disguises herself as a young man and pretends to be Celia's elder brother. And so, the boy who is in love with Rosalind almost does not recognize her. Anyway, that's something else which is not directly related to the song that I'm going to talk about today. So, William Shakespeare's play, As You Like It, clearly falls into the pastoral romance genre, but Shakespeare does not merely use the genre, he develops it. Shakespeare also used the pastoral genre in As You Like It to cast a critical eye on social practices that produce injustice and unhappiness, and to make fun of antisocial, foolish, and self-destructive behavior, most obviously through the theme of love. You've got Jacques and the Fool and Touchstone. I'm not going to talk about those characters today in this lecture, culminating in a rejection of the notion of the traditional Petrarchan lovers. Petrarch, my dear students, was an old Italian writer of the classical age. For those of you who have done the sonnet as a literary form, you might remember that the Italian sonnet is also called the Petrarchan sonnet. So, in some way, Shakespeare was making fun of some of the traditions of the age. He was also critically viewing some of the social traditions, rituals that he thought were ridiculous, that he did not believe in. Let me now come to the song. Not a very long poem, and therefore I would like to go line by line. Blow, blow thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Remember, it's winter. These people are out in the open. The Duke and his courtiers, they are not used to staying outside on a wintry night. They probably were living in palaces and beautiful houses with no idea of how cold and difficult life was outside. And now they have to experience it. But the singer sings, blow, blow thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. My dear students, I told you the story in short. These people are in the forest. Why are they in the forest? Remember, because Duke Jr. has banished his elder brother because the younger one wanted the throne, which was rightfully the elder brother's, right? So, the comparison. Shakespeare always used metaphor, similes, puns, alliteration, name it, and you see the figures of speech in Shakespeare. No wonder we consider him a great writer. He says you are unkind, you are cruel because it's so difficult when it's so windy, when it's so cold, when it's so biting. But this is nothing in comparison to man's ingratitude. We are watching the play. Those of us who are watching the play, when we hear this song, we immediately realize that this is a direct reference to the younger brother. Forgetting the love of his elder brother, what has he done? He has banished his elder brother. He sent him away to the forest to live on cold, wintry nights outside. And therefore, the singer, Shakespeare, of course, right? But the singer says, "Blow, blow thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, because thou art not seen, although thy breath be rude." Have you ever seen the wind, my dear students? Certainly not. The wind doesn't have a shape. We can only feel the wind. But what about man who is ungrateful? What about the ingratitude that we are talking about? Of those people whom we can see, and we know that it's our own brother, we know that it's our own relative. How much more cruel is that? So he says the wind is cruel, but not as cruel as man's ingratitude. And why is it not so cruel? Because we cannot see the wind. We cannot recognize the wind, but our own younger brother. After all, the Duke Senior must have loved his younger brother. And what has the younger brother shown? He has shown ingratitude. So he says, thy tooth, we talk about the biting cold which is very, very, very cold. We talk about biting cold. And because we talk about biting cold, he says, your teeth are not as sharp as the men who are ungrateful. Why? The reason is because thou cannot be seen. You cannot be seen. And therefore, I think you are not as cruel, you are not as terrible, as horrible as human beings who are ungrateful, as human beings who show ingratitude. Can we have a look at the slide again, my dear students, and read the line? Read it with me if you like, and see how beautiful the poem is, the song is. Blow, blow thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, not so sharp, because thou art not seen, although thy breath be rude. Need I point out to you, my dear students, that some of the words are the old English that Shakespeare used, which we don't use today? So if you look at the second line, the art that you know is kala, painting is an art, but here art is A-R-E. If you come to the fourth line, the word thy is your, right? Thine is yours, thou is you, which we see in the next line. Because thou art not seen, you are not seen, although your breath be rude. He imagines the wind actually breathing. And what kind of breath is it? It's rude, because it's violent, it's not soft, it's not tender. Agreed, the winter wind is very cruel, but not as cruel as a man who is ungrateful, who is filled with ingratitude. You get my point? There is a direct comparison between the cold winter night, which is horrible, but not as horrible as a man who is ungrateful. I need not repeat. If you know the story, it's very, very clear that this is a direct reference to the younger brother. Can we read the poem again, my dear students? Blow, blow thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, because thou art seen, although thy breath be rude. Shall we go on with the poem? Hey ho, sing, hey ho, unto the green holly. Most friendship if feigning, most loving mere folly. Then hey ho the holly, this life is most jolly. Remember, I told you that the Duke Senior and his courtiers are happy, are enjoying themselves. They are not sitting there and regretting the fact that they are not living in the court anymore. It's almost as if they don't miss court life at all. Because what have they done? They have carried their happiness with themselves. Shakespeare was a great psychologist, my dear students. He's telling us, probably, indirectly, that happiness does not come from things which are around you. You carry your happiness. So the Duke Senior and his friends, his courtiers, his followers, when they came with him to the forest of Arden, they brought their own joy. They brought their own happiness. And therefore, my dear students, there was no need for them to be unhappy. They did not need palaces. They did not need silks. They did not need crowns and jewelry. They did not need the best food. They did not need servants, because they were happy within. Shakespeare was a great psychologist. Long before psychology became such an important subject in the world. And therefore, very playfully, you la 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 la, you can make up music. So here the music goes on. Hey ho, sing, hey ho, unto the green holly. Most friendship, if feigning, most loving, mere folly. I told you there are 6 to 8 couples in the play, but yet Emion sings, most loving, mere folly. It's a mistake, he says. Most of these love stories are great mistakes, because there are all sorts of confusion taking place, complications taking place, disguise, and somebody not realizing who somebody is, who is in love with whom, etc., etc. It's great fun. The entire play is great fun. But he says that most love is folly, and he says friendship is feigning. Feigning is pretending, not true friendship. It's just pretending. Then, hey ho, the holly, this life is most jolly. There is a lot of rhyme. Rhyme created in joy. It's not as if there's great meaning in these 4 lines. There was a lot of meaning in the previous 8 lines that I read, my dear students. But if you look at these 4 lines, it's just fun. It's singing. And a lot of time you sing because you're happy. You sing for fun. You sing because you want to entertain others. And that's what's happening in this particular song of Shakespeare's play, As You Like It. Hey ho, sing, hey ho, unto the green holly, most friendship, if feigning, most loving, mere folly. Then hey ho, the holly, this life is most jolly. So you've got holly, folly, holly, jolly. Okay, so you've got the rhyme scheme also. He wrote in a kind of free verse here, so it's not as if you can sit and mark the syllables and decide how many to each line. Let's go on. Freeze, freeze, thou bitter sky, that does not bite so nigh as benefits forgot. Though thou the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp as a friend remembered not. What he began with at the beginning of the poem, however cold it might be, however cruel the wind might be, however biting probably the frost may be, the snow, the ice, yet it is not as bad as man's ingratitude. You remember that, my dear students, in the first verse? I explained it in detail. So now he says, freeze, freeze, thou bitter sky, that does not bite so nigh as benefits forgot. Everything can freeze. You might feel very cold. Again, a reference to the biting cold. But yet, it is not so nigh, not nearly as bad as benefits forgot. Remember in the first verse we talked about ingratitude, and I talked about the younger brother probably being ungrateful for all the love that the elder brother must have showered on him. Well, the same idea is repeated here. That does not bite so nigh as benefits forgot. People who forget what they have got from others, their bite is much worse. It hurts you much more than the cold wintry night. The winter, the freezing cold, the biting cold is not as bad. It does not upset you. It does not affect you as much as when benefits are forgotten. Though thou the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp as a friend remembered not. How do you get your strength? It's because of water. A little bit of science, my dear students, you surely remember. How do you get ice? It's because it's water, right? Water which is frozen. So where are you getting all your energy from? You're getting your energy from the waters. Though thou the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp. Remember the word sting. Where do we use the word sting from? With scorpions? With snakes? Right? So the sting is always poisonous. It's deadly. It's harmful. It's painful. And its effects last a long, long time. So, ingratitude, it's as if ingratitude bites you. It's far more painful than the cold biting of winter. You've also experienced winter, and sometimes in Gujarat, the mornings or the nights can be very, very cold. And if you imagine that you're not staying inside a house, then you will be able to imagine how much colder, how much more difficult it is. For somebody who has always stayed in the forest or on the footpath, maybe it's not so cold, but somebody who's used to the comforts of a house, the luxurious comforts of a palace life, for such a person to be out in the cold on a wintry night in the forest of Arden, it must be really, really difficult. And therefore he says, freeze, freeze, thou bitter sky, that does not bite so nigh as benefits forgotten. Though thou the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp as a friend remembered not. So if you look at the poem, you will notice that he talks about the ingratitude of man. He compares it to the winter, but he tells us that the ingratitude of man is not as bad, is much, much worse than the cold winter that you feel. So, though it is the waters that warp, thy sting is not so sharp as a friend remembered not. And then he goes back to that playful mood and he sings, hey ho, sing, hey ho, unto the green holly. Most friendship is feigning, most loving mere folly. Then hey ho the holly, that life is most jolly. If you had a little music with you, probably a guitar or something, maybe you could strum the guitar and sing. How Amiens must have sung in front of Duke Senior and all his courtiers, enjoying their life in the forest of Arden and realizing that now it has become cold. Now it's going to be difficult for us to continue to live here. Maybe when they went there it was summer. Maybe it was summer. Maybe it was spring. Maybe it was comfortable staying out in the forest. But now that is cold. Shakespeare does not write even one word without some extra meaning hidden. He was such a great writer that even in these songs of the plays, you can see how much of meaning is pumped into it. It's as if it's tight. You just have to unravel to understand what he's talking about. And in this song, he's certainly talking like a psychologist because he understands how hurt the senior Duke must have been when he realized that his own younger brother is banishing him. So, those who stayed back with the Duke Jr. probably earlier were friends of Duke Senior. You know, there are always people who know on which side the bread is buttered. What does that mean? They know where it is useful, where it is profitable for them to be. So here probably he's referring to those friends who decided to have the comfortable life and stay back with somebody who is wrong. And who is that somebody? Duke Jr. So the poem, you notice. Can we go back, my dear students, and read the entire poem once? Blow, blow the winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, because thou art not seen, although thy breath be rude. Read it to yourself and see whether you have understood everything. It's a simple poem, but there is a hidden layer of meaning, because he's comparing the hard, harsh winter out in the forest to men who are unkind, men who are ingrateful, men who forget the good that has been done to them and give in return only bad. And especially when it's your own younger brother, it must be so much more hurting. And therefore, blow, blow the winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, because thou art not seen, although thy breath be rude. Hey ho, sing, hey ho, unto the green holly. Most friendship if feigning, most loving mere folly. Then hey ho the holly, this life is most jolly. I don't care, because I'm happy being here, is what Emian seems to be saying. It's what the Duke, the senior Duke, and all his followers, all his courtiers, all his friends who have come with him seem to be saying. Sing, hey ho, sing, hey ho unto the green holly. Most friendship if feigning, most loving mere folly. Then hey ho the holly. This life is most jolly. I forgot to mention, my dear students, holly is a kind of plant, right? It's a bush. And therefore, when he talks about holly, there must be a lot of bushes. Naturally, they are in the forest, right? And with the coming of winter, autumn, all the leaves must have shed. So there are some plants. And so one of the plants that he's talking about is holly. But also remember, he needs it to rhyme with folly and jolly. Maybe if he had chosen another word, he could have thought of maybe some other plant. Let's go on reading. Freeze, freeze, thou bitter sky, that does not bite so nigh as benefits forgot. Though thou the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp as a friend remembered not. And once again the music. Hey ho, sing, hey ho, unto the green holly. Most friendship is feigning, most loving mere folly. Then hey ho the holly, this life is most jolly. That was a short poem, a song in a play by the great Shakespeare. The play, as you like it, a pastoral romance with the main character, Rosalind. Oh, she's a lovable heroine. And of course, the story ends with the junior duke realizing his mistake. Remember, it's a comedy, and therefore it should end all's well that ends well. And everybody should be happy. And they lived happily ever after. And therefore, the junior duke recognizes his mistake, comes to the forest of Arden, and takes back his brother. All the couples get married, and that's how As You Like It ends. But what are the characteristic features that we see in this song, that we see in a lot of the poetry that Shakespeare wrote? I would even say that many of his plays, the poetry is so high a standard that you can see these qualities in his plays too. And what are the characteristics that I'm talking about? I'm talking about the lyrical quality, right? So the lyrical quality, there is music. Remember the hey, ho, jolly, folly. There is that inbuilt music in the poetry of Shakespeare. See, music can come from outside after a song has been written, after the lyrics are ready. As it happens in many of our movies, the song can come in. The music can come in. You can decide which musical instruments you want to have. But here we are looking at the lyrical quality of the poem itself, of the words itself, the use of sibilants maybe. The lyrical quality also comes from the use of alliteration, for example. Maybe the use of long vowels, maybe the use of internal rhyme. All this could contribute to the lyrical quality of a song which we see here. The second thing that we see is imagery. You just have to shut your eyes. Remember that scene I showed you at the beginning of this lecture? I showed you that cold, wintry night. But Shakespeare is able to create that scene so beautifully that even if I hadn't shown you that scene, you probably shut your eyes, you could remember, you could imagine one such scene. If you have seen it, maybe the scene will come back to you. If you have not seen it, maybe you will imagine it. That is the kind of imagery that Shakespeare is able to use. When he talks about bite being keen, the sharpness of the bite, it creates such a beautiful picture in the mind's eye. Shakespeare was a great master of poetry. And all of us know that figures of speech are very important in poetry. What are the figures of speech that you remember, my dear students? The simile and metaphor, certainly. Personification, the pun, irony, and go on a little further. Maybe some of you remember metonymy and synecdoche. Some of you remember oxymoron. Some of you remember hyperbole and litotes. And some of you remember onomatopoeia. You too, right? Where the sound creates the meaning. Maybe you remember onomatopoeia and so on and so forth. Some of you remember assonance and maybe cacophony, etc. There's so many figures of speech. But Shakespeare could beautifully use the figures of speech. Remember, it began with a simile, not as cruel as man's ingratitude. Two things are being compared, right? The horrible winter wind, the biting cold, and it is compared to man's ingratitude. So right at the beginning of the poem, you have the figure of speech, and Shakespeare's favorite figure of speech was the metaphor and the simile. He has used it beautifully all through his plays, and we find an example of it even here in this song. What is the message that the song leaves us with? This is another great quality of Shakespeare. He did not stand up and preach. It's not as if he told us, thou shalt do this and thou shalt not do that. But in the course of his plays, in the course of his songs, in the course of his sonnet, so much of a message gets across. What is the kind of message that comes here, that comes across? Remember, it's a part of the play where the younger brother has thrown the elder brother out. What is the message that comes across? Number one, to my mind, that man's unkindness and ingratitude are terrible vices. If possible, stay away from things like ingratitude. Number one. The second message that comes across, and to my mind, which is very important even in this short song, is the fact that man can be happy wherever he is. The Duke and his courtiers and his followers and his friends prove this point to the maximum. Rosalind and Celia set out dressed as a shepherd and shepherdess, as a brother and sister, used to the luxuries of court life. These two young women, because they are going out in the forest, in terms of safety, they decide that one should be dressed as a man, and Rosalind, being taller, decides to be the man. They are able to get their happiness, their fun, their frolic as they go through the forest. The people they come across, the people they talk to, they carry their own happiness with them. Like a snail carrying its house on its back. So also these people carry their happiness with them. I think this is another message that comes across even in this song. Another message I think that comes across, even though he says all love is folly, another message to my mind is that love conquers all. You notice in this play how the various couples, the various pairs of lovers, have a different approach to love. But at the end of it all, their love succeeds. And as I told you, there are 5 or 6 marriages at the end of the play. So that is another message, that love conquers all. Shakespeare was a great poet, my dear students, and therefore remember, he never preached. He never told us, do this or don't do this. But as we watch his plays, as we read his songs, as we read his sonnets or his longer poems to some extent, we are left with this feeling that this is what Shakespeare wants to say. This is his message. Whether you read a tragedy or you read a comedy or you read a sonnet, the message comes across clear. So in this poem, you have the lyrical quality, you have a great deal of imagery, you have figures of speech, and you are left with this message. Is the poem clear, my dear students? Remember, I'm calling it a poem, but I should actually be calling it a song, because it is a song within a play. Who sings these songs? In different plays, different characters sing. Sometimes it could be the heroine, for example, Ophelia singing in Hamlet. Sometimes, as in this case, it could be some very unimportant character as Aemons, because Aemons hardly speaks, he hardly has a role, but yet he is singing a song. It is the context. It is the place where Shakespeare thinks a song will be effective, and to find a song which will fit in there. I think those are the ways in which Shakespeare decides who should sing. I don't think at the beginning of a play he decides who should sing a song and who shouldn't sing a song, right? So you have a song here in this pastoral romance telling us about how cold and wintry it is, how biting the cold is, but yet not biting as the sting of a man who has forgotten the good that he has received. Go back, my dear students, pick up your textbook and read the poem. I've gone through the poem line by line. No, I should be saying word by word, and I've explained everything to you. But in order to refresh your memory, in order to once again go through it and try and see whether I've understood it or not, I think it's very, very important for you to go back and read the poem right away and see how beautifully the great dramatist is able to bring this lyrical quality even to a short song within the play. You might ask me, what is the importance of the song in the play? There might not be a direct one-to-one importance. Why should the song be here? What if the song were not here? I don't think we should ask such questions of a great writer like Shakespeare. He realized that a song here could be effective. Which character is to sing the song? I'm sure he thinks about that also before he puts a song into the play. So, we just looked at blow, blow, thou winter wind, talking to the wind and asking it to blow, because whatever it does, it cannot be as bad as what the Duke Jr. has done to the Duke Sr. So, that was Blow, Blow, Thou Winter Wind, a song in As You Like It. Remember, this is a part of your foundation course, and therefore, I hope you've paid attention, understood the poem, and will be able to answer the questions that are asked. It's important to read the poem again right away today, or maximum tomorrow, when you still remember how I explained it. What are the words that were important? What are the figures of speech that he has used? What is the tone? What is the background in which man's ingratitude is being talked about? What are the characteristic features of Shakespeare as a poet? But more importantly, what are the characteristic features that come across to us in this poem? I hope you enjoyed the poem. After all, written by a great poet, William Shakespeare of the Elizabethan age. Thank you very much.
Sandhan, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.